1. People's Temple. The People's Temple was founded by Jim Jones in the 1950s as a religious movement promoting racial equality and social justice. Jones initially attracted followers with messages of acceptance and support for the underprivileged. However, as the group grew, Jones became increasingly controlling, using psychological manipulation to maintain loyalty. He demanded total obedience and cut members off from their families. In 1977, amid scrutiny from the media and the U.S. government, Jones moved over 1,000 followers to Jonestown, a remote settlement in Guyana. Life there was harsh, with strict rules, grueling labor, and limited resources. Jones frequently gave fiery speeches, warning of enemies plotting to destroy them. In 1978, after a U.S. congressman visited Jonestown to investigate claims of abuse, Jones panicked. He orchestrated the mass suicide of his followers, claiming it was a revolutionary act to protest oppression. Over 900 people, including children, died after drinking cyanide-laced drinks. Some were forced at gunpoint, while others followed willingly due to Jones's coercion. The Jonestown Massacre remains one of the largest mass suicides in history. It exposed the dangers of unchecked charismatic leadership and psychological manipulation. The tragedy serves as a stark warning about the potential for cults to exploit people's vulnerabilities and lead them to devastating ends. 2. Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate was founded by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles in the 1970s. The pair believed they were messengers from a higher realm, sent to guide humanity to a next level of existence. They taught that humans were mere vessels for their true spiritual selves, and that ascension could only be achieved by leaving behind the physical body. The cult gained attention for its unusual beliefs, combining science fiction with religious themes. Members adopted a minimalist lifestyle, gave up personal possessions, and severed ties with their families. They lived communally and followed strict rules, including celibacy and a vegetarian diet. In 1997, the group became convinced that the Hale-Bopp comet was a sign of their salvation. Applewhite claimed that a spaceship trailing the comet would transport their souls to a higher plane. To prepare for this transition, 39 members participated in a mass suicide. They consumed a lethal cocktail of phenobarbital, applesauce, and vodka and then suffocated themselves with plastic bags. The members were found lying peacefully in identical outfits, with patches reading Heaven's Gateway Team. The tragedy shocked the world, sparking discussions about how charismatic leaders manipulate vulnerable individuals. Heaven's Gate remains a chilling example of how isolation, strict ideology, and the promise of salvation can lead to deadly consequences. Their story underscores the dangers of blind faith and the power of groupthink in extreme environments. 3. The Manson Family. The Manson family was a cult led by Charles Manson in California during the late 1960s. Manson, a charismatic drifter with musical ambitions, attracted a group of followers, many of them young women, by preaching about love, freedom, and rejecting societal norms. However, beneath his outward charm lay dangerous and manipulative intentions. Manson believed in an apocalyptic race war, which he called Helter Skelter, a term he borrowed from a Beatles song. He convinced his followers that they were destined to survive the chaos and rule the world afterward. To spark this war, Manson ordered a series of gruesome murders. In 1969, members of the cult carried out the infamous killings of actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant, and 4 others in her Los Angeles home. The next night, they murdered Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, writing disturbing messages at the crime scenes to incite fear and chaos. These murders shocked the nation and became symbols of the dark side of the 1960s counterculture. Manson's influence over his followers was profound. He used manipulation, isolation, and drugs to control them. Though he didn't commit the murders himself, he was convicted of orchestrating them and spent the rest of his life in prison. The Manson family remains one of the most infamous cults in history, illustrating the terrifying potential of a manipulative leader to twist idealism into violence and destruction. 4. Aum Shinrikyo. Aum Shinrikyo, meaning Supreme Truth, was founded by Shoko Asahara in Japan in the 1980s. Originally presented as a yoga and meditation group blending Buddhism and Hinduism, it later evolved into a dangerous doomsday cult with apocalyptic beliefs. Asahara declared himself a messiah and claimed he had been chosen to lead his followers into a new era after an impending world war. The cult attracted thousands of members, including highly educated individuals such as scientists and engineers. Asahara's teachings grew more extreme, focusing on violent methods to trigger chaos. He sought to bring about the apocalypse, believing it would allow Aum Shinrikyo to take over the world. In 1995, the cult carried out its most infamous act, the Tokyo subway sarin gas attack. Members released the deadly nerve agent sarin on several trains during rush hour, killing 13 people and injuring over 1,000. The attack was an attempt to create widespread panic and destabilize Japanese society. Investigations revealed the cult's extensive criminal activities, including kidnappings, murders, and plans for more large-scale attacks. Authorities raided Aum Shinrikyo facilities, uncovering stockpiles of chemical weapons and biological agents. Asahara and several key members were arrested and later sentenced to death. Aum Shinrikyo remains a cautionary tale of how religious extremism, combined with charismatic leadership and access to dangerous resources, can result in devastating violence. The group's actions left a lasting scar on Japan and highlighted the global risks posed by domestic terrorism. 5. Order of the Solar Temple. The Order of the Solar Temple was a secretive doomsday cult founded by Joseph D. Mambro and Luc Juret in the late 1980s. Based in Switzerland, France, and Canada, the cult combined elements of Christianity, New Age beliefs, and apocalyptic predictions. Members believed they were spiritual elites tasked with preparing for the end of the world and transitioning to a higher existence on a mystical star. D. Mambro and Juret presented themselves as spiritual leaders, exploiting their followers emotionally and financially. Members were required to donate significant sums of money and participate in secretive rituals. These rituals often included symbols, costumes, and references to the Knights Templar, enhancing the cult's mysterious allure. By the early 1990s, the leader's influence began to unravel due to internal disputes and growing skepticism. To maintain control, D. Mambro and Juret orchestrated a series of mass murders disguised as suicides. In 1994, 53 members of the order were found dead in Switzerland and Canada. Some victims were murdered, while others willingly participated in the so-called transit to the afterlife. Their homes were set on fire to erase evidence, further emphasizing the cult's chilling control. Additional mass deaths occurred in 1995 and 1997, bringing the total death toll to over 70. Investigators revealed that the leaders had manipulated followers with promises of salvation while pursuing personal wealth and power. The Order of the Solar Temple remains a haunting example of how blind faith in charismatic leaders can lead to mass tragedy. Point 6. Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, FLDS. The Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, FLDS, is a polygamous sect that emerged as a splinter group from mainstream Mormonism after the latter renounced polygamy in 1890. Under the leadership of Warren Jeffs, who became the prophet in 2002 following his father's death, the FLDS became notorious for its oppressive practices, particularly regarding polygamy and child marriage. Jeffs exercised extreme control over his followers, enforcing strict rules that dictated every aspect of their lives, including prohibitions against television, music, and even swimming. He mandated that women suppress their emotions and adhere to rigid dress codes, while men were expected to follow his directives without question. Jeffs' leadership style fostered an environment of fear and obedience, leading to widespread abuse within the community. In 2006, Jeffs was placed on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list for orchestrating illegal marriages between older men and underage girls. His arrest in 2006 led to a series of legal battles culminating in a life sentence for child sexual assault in 2011. Despite his imprisonment, many FLDS members continue to view him as their prophet, believing he communicates divine revelations from prison. The FLDS has faced increasing scrutiny and legal challenges over the years, particularly following a 2008 raid on their Texas compound that revealed systemic abuse. Although the sect has lost many members and influence since Jeffs' incarceration, reports suggest he still exerts control from behind bars, issuing edicts that alarm former members and observers alike. 7. Matamoros Human Sacrifice Cult. The Matamoros human sacrifice cult was led by Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo, a self-proclaimed spiritual leader involved in drug trafficking and dark rituals. Based in Matamoros, Mexico, the cult's activities during the late 1980s shocked the world due to their gruesome nature. Constanzo combined elements of palo mayombe, a form of Afro-Caribbean witchcraft, with ritualistic human sacrifice to gain power and protection for his drug smuggling operations. Constanzo believed that human sacrifices would grant him and his followers supernatural protection and ensure the success of their criminal activities. The cult engaged in horrific rituals, including the mutilation and murder of their victims, which were often linked to the cult's drug trafficking connections. Constanzo convinced his followers that these acts were necessary to avoid the wrath of evil spirits and achieve protection from law enforcement and rival drug cartels. In 1989, the cult's crimes were exposed when the mutilated body of a young American man, Mark Kilroy, was found in a remote location. Kilroy had been abducted and sacrificed by the cult, and the discovery led to an investigation. Police uncovered a series of ritualistic murders, and Constanzo, along with several cult members, was arrested. Constanzo later died during a standoff with authorities, but the cult's horrific actions left a deep mark on both Mexico and the United States. The Matamoros human sacrifice cult highlights the dangers of combining occult practices with criminal enterprises, and how charismatic leaders can manipulate vulnerable individuals into committing horrific acts in the name of supernatural power. 8. Movement for the Restoration of the Ten Commandments of God. The movement for the restoration of the Ten Commandments of God was a religious cult in Uganda, led by Joseph Kibwedir and other leaders, that gained infamy for its tragic end in 2000. The group was founded in the early 1990s, and its leaders promised followers that they were restoring the true Ten Commandments as part of a divine mission. They also preached that the world would end in the year 2000, specifically on December 31st, when the faithful would ascend to heaven while the unworthy would be left behind. Kibwedir and his followers lived in a secluded community where they followed strict religious rules. The group practiced intense control over its members, limiting their contact with the outside world and demanding financial contributions. They also believed in the purification of the soul through obedience to the leaders' teachings. When the world did not end as predicted, the leaders resorted to drastic measures to maintain their control. In March 2000, over 700 members were locked inside a church building in a rural Ugandan village. The leaders set the church on fire, killing everyone inside. It was later revealed that some of the victims had been forced into the church, while others had been lured there by the promise of salvation. The tragic incident was one of the deadliest cult-related events in modern history. The leaders were arrested, and investigations revealed a pattern of manipulation, deception, and control over vulnerable people. The movement for the restoration of the Ten Commandments of God serves as a grim reminder of the potential dangers of cults that promise salvation while leading their followers toward disaster.